It's Rich Keefe, it's the DORK podcast. Keefe Davey, it's the DORK podcast. Hashtag, it's the hashtag DORK podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Hashtag Dork, a special Severance episode, as we are a Severance recap podcast now, at least for the next 7 weeks or so. My name is Rich Keefe, joined as always by Davey Eyeballs. Davey, how are you, sir?
I'm okay. I'm confused.
There's a lot happening here on this program. It is, let's see, it's the third episode this season. It is the 12th episode of this show. We're going to do really all spoilers. So if you're just diving in, just seeing what it's like, we highly recommend it. It's one of the few shows that we have given the weekly recap treatment to. And it's a real, what the heck is going on?
Real, what the hell is going on here?
Trying to figure it out. We're trying to figure it out each and every week. Theories are welcome. Hit us up with theories in the chat. Our third man in, Billy D, will not be joining us this week, although he did send me an email, which we will get to some of his thoughts via the email. But Dave, here's an idea I had. What if we just kind of go through? I even just found like legit the Wikipedia description of the episode.
Sure.
We'll just read a couple sentences, kind of unpack that, read a couple more, unpack that, then get into the what the fuck moments, theories, questions, etc. That sounds
Love it.
Sounds like a plan. All right, so episode 3 of season 2 was entitled "Who is Alive?" We'll have more on that in a moment. Mark prints missing persons posters of Ms. Casey to hand out on the severed floor and goes with Helly to take copies to the mysterious goat department they once stumbled upon. First off, how convincing were the missing persons mock-ups?
I thought they did a pretty good job, all things considered.
Yeah.
Luckily they have the artist, John Turturro's, they have the artist down there. So
beautiful. Yeah, you'd be able
to
find that person. You knew who it was when you saw that. So then they're going to go, because we saw goats in season 1 and we talked about them, and it was like a guy and he was like bottle feeding these goats.
Yes.
To which led a lot of people's theories down the road of cloning, right?
Right.
But you're like, all right, that was sort of like a what the fuck moment, and we moved on because there was so much shit going on that I think we hit on it in the episode, our season 1 episode, but we didn't spend a ton of time on the goats. I feel like we're going to be getting a lot more goats here. This is a goat heavy episode.
A lot of goats, and maybe it's they're being treated like farm animals down there. They're being herded like farm. I don't know what the symbolism is there, but they have those people, and they have a really weird name. What do they call them? Like the
Mammalin's nurturable.
Yeah, really weird name.
Nurturable. Yeah, mammalians or whatever. Mammalians nurturable department. And we didn't see this before. Before we just saw a dude and he was like bottle feeding these goats, and he was like sitting in like a chair and there was goats everywhere. And then we see this room that's empty, and then there's like sort of like a little door and they crawl through it. And then it's this enormous room, and it looks like The Sound of Music, like hills and valleys. It's like this giant like green. So you see some goats and you see like a little bit of a hill, and then you see Gwendolyn Christie.
Sure do.
You might know her as Captain Phasma. No, that's Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones. And all the characters that we see here in this little goat farm, they all look a little bit like they got banged up a little bit.
They absolutely do. And what's confusing to me, and someone brought up a good point on like BuzzFeed, I was reading like a recap of that, is like, did these people just go home and not wonder why they smell like goats?
Or do these people even go home?
Or do they just stay down there?
I don't know. We haven't seen an Audi version of any of those people. But yeah, how would they explain away all like the fucking slashes and bruises and everything?
Right.
I don't know. All right, so the two talking about Helly and Mark discover the goat pasture led by Lorne. So Lorne is Agatha Christie, or Gwendolyn.
Agatha Christie. I love that.
Though initially hostile, it says the mammalians reveal Ms. Casey did her sessions in their husbandry tanks and promised not to hinder MDR's search. They also point out that Ms. Casey had like some info on their Audis. So I guess never mind. Right? They did actually say Denise is like, oh, she told me my Audi likes to stargaze or something like that.
Yeah.
So I guess they do leave. So never mind. Take it, strike it from the record. They do leave, but they knew who Ms. Casey was, and they seem to like Ms. Casey. And so now it looks like they're going to help them out, or if not help them, they're at least not going to call the cops on them.
Well, they kind of did, right? They kind of helped him out a little bit by, I've seen her before, and she would come down here to do her, and she called like her sessions or something.
Yeah.
Whatever that meant.
Yep.
But that's the thing. Like this show drives me nuts because for every question they answer, they like 5 more get asked.
Yeah.
You know?
They keep it going. Irving takes one of the missing posters to O&D where he runs into Felicia. She tells Irving that his sketch of the dark hallway from his Audi's paintings resembles the exports hall where past O&D employees would take the products they made. So I like Irving a lot. I think his
I do too.
Audi versus his innie is really fascinating, and like what he remembers, because that's definitely like an overarching question too, right? Is like, how good does this work? A lot of people's theories are just like, this is a test. Like one of the main reasons why they put Mark in a room with Ms. Casey is like they really wanted to see how well this would work. Like it's not just like, hey, you're surrounded by all these strangers and we manipulated your brain, but here's your wife who you thought was dead, and you can have these full-on conversations and not know anything about it. And Irving, clearly his Audi has some sort of like some recall of what's going on with his innie, which is certainly something.
Someone in the chat brought a good point, like the belly showing, like show us your bellies.
Oh yeah.
That does lead to cloning a little bit, because that's the very first thing I thought of, because like a clone wouldn't have a belly button because you wouldn't need, but you might. And so that the guy's like, this proves nothing. Like they've been talking about it forever down there, that these people are clones.
Well, there was also a line in season 1 where I think Bert or somebody in O&D refers to like they heard stories about the macro data refinement division, and they said that they don't have belly buttons or something like that. So I think it might have been
a lot of office politics here.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's possible it was a callback to that. And so that once they said what department they were in, they were like, all right, well, let's see if this is true. And then you see their little tum-tums.
Little tummies. Yep.
They're fat. Yeah, the chat, I'm not there yet. The chat saying that this show could be teetering on like smelling their own farts.
Yeah, I'm not there yet either.
I still like it quite a bit. Like we'll see where it goes. If it gets too deep inside, because I just think it's right now I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt that it's a very smart and clever show, and we're gonna get payoffs to this. And maybe it doesn't answer every single question when it's all said and done, but it answers most questions. At least that's the hope. Dylan, here we go. Dylan is granted a visitation with his Audi's wife, Gretchen, who shows him a picture of his 3 children. Let's stop right here.
This was supposed to be kind of like this tender thing, but I couldn't help but laugh the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
Where she's like, well, he just can't really keep a job. And he goes, he dumb?
Which is so funny because in season 1, Dylan would always talk about how great his Audi must be. Like just going on and on and on. Like he didn't know, but he's just like, he would make up these stories about how incredible he was. And then now he kind of learns that he's like, so what is he, just like a fuck up? He's like, so the innie version actually has his shit together more so than the Audi version.
Right.
Also, this actress is good. She was in The Walking Dead. She was also in a really good show, the woman who plays Dylan's wife, called Unbelievable. I don't know if you ever saw it. It was with Toni Collette.
I watched some of it, and it was with the girl who plays Abby in the Last of Us now, and she was like, right?
So good. Yeah, this is the one. So it's a fucked up story, but it's basically like there's like a group of people trying to like prove that she made up like this sexual assault or whatever, and then like Toni Collette and this woman play like detectives or whatever. Anyway, so I've seen her a few times. She's a good actress, which makes me feel like this certainly won't be a one-off. At least I can't imagine it's going to be a one-off, right?
Right, it can't be.
She's going to be in it a lot more. The other thing that jumped out to me is Oh no, never mind. I just double checked. So in the first episode, when we saw maybe Funke that
Yes.
was in there, I thought her name was Gretchen. It's not, it was Gwendolyn. So it's close.
Yeah.
She was Gwendolyn, she's Gretchen, because one of the theories we had last week is because you only heard Dylan's wife on the phone that we thought maybe it was her, but it's confirmed not. It's for sure not her. It's another woman. But what a ridiculous, like, I understand having to give these characters a little bit more than just the fucking stupid trinkets as like rewards, because now that they've tasted some of the outside, but to even allow this, I feel like is such a dumb decision to be like, hey, you can meet your Audi's wife and see pictures of the family and shit like that. Now it's not completely unsupervised because Miss Huang was like on the mic, she's like, hey, don't say anything like sensitive or whatever,
Right.
but isn't that playing with fire to even like bring her down there?
It is, but it's also a way for them to kind of see like what she's been told, if that makes sense, like what he's told her. But it is weird that, like, why would you do that? Like, I wouldn't want to, like, it must be so weird. Like, if you were to talk to me, but I had no idea who you were, but you know me,
Right?
or you know a version of me, like that would be really off-putting for both people. I don't know why you would agree to do that.
Yeah, I don't see why she would. I feel like the any version's like, I don't know, maybe curiosity killed the cat. And he's like, let me get in there, let me take a
That's
look.
why they call him Whiskers.
Exactly. And so, but the Audi version would be like, nah, I kind of want to keep this shit separate.
Yeah, like the reason I'm down here is I don't want you to know like what I'm doing down here. I don't want you to have like a weird opinion of me.
Is it cheating if she hooks up with the any version in like a conjugal visit type of way?
That's actually a fantastic question that I thought myself. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
All right, let me ask you, let me throw a volley this way. Let's say you were severed and
Sure.
you whatever, you don't even really know what your job is, but you're like, this is the best thing for my family, I want to get severed. And then your wife says to you, hey, Lumen just reached out and they said they want me to meet with the any version of you. And you're like, okay.
Like,
And
nice.
then you found out, that's what I'm saying. You found out that they hooked up. What would you say?
I'd be like, I get it. He's a handsome devil.
You're obviously very turned on.
Yeah, I get it.
I'd be like, can I watch? Like,
You get a tape of that. I know they filmed it.
So then the Audi is just a cuck at this point.
Do you think your stroke is different?
You got to be different.
It's got to be different, right?
I think, yeah, you're doing it probably different ways, maybe ways you never even thought of.
That's right.
You know,
So it is
new
kind of like a
creative
different
ways.
person. It's like the ship of Theseus. You know, at what point is it new? Or does it stop being that thing?
I mean, the outside's the same. The voice is the same.
The girth is the same.
Girth, width, length.
Yep.
Now, here's a question. Would one be able to last longer than the other?
Probably. Right? Because that's a mental thing.
It is a mental thing, isn't it?
It is.
Damn it.
I think
I don't know.
I think the innie would be less time. I think he would be more excited.
Mm-hmm.
You know, did you think at any point in that scene that it was going to turn that way? That it was like they're gonna, ooh, here we go.
Yes. I also thought if they weren't being watched, or if at least they were under the impression that they weren't watched, I think we could have gotten a little, maybe like a, not to be crass, but maybe like a hand job and some fingering.
That would be nice. Some hand stuff.
Just hand play, just to, you know, prime the pump a little bit and then leave you wanting more.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which I always do.
But it was bizarre. And then we see Audi Dylan just sitting on the couch. His kids are just watching TV. And he's like, "Hey, how'd that go?" She's like, "I like this version of you. I like that. I hate you compared to the other guy." Like, it went great.
Well, and it was like,
He's like,
he's really,
yeah.
That was a big reward for him at his job, right? And so
yeah,
it's this juxtaposition of that and this conversation that she has with him. He's like, "Oh, we got to make cookies for school," and he like doesn't know how to make like pre-made cookies.
Yeah, you can't do.
It's like all you do is slice them up and put them on the thing. He's like, okay, like he has no idea how to do that.
He's not great.
Yeah,
the indie version's definitely better. Let's see. Continuing from the Wikipedia summary, Natalie approaches Rickon to discuss adapting the You Are for innies. The book really speaks to the innies, you know?
Well, it's because they have no context of the outside world, so it doesn't really like.
That's true.
So they're just taking everything in this book at like face value, and it's the dumbest thing ever.
So stupid. He's like so excited about this. Yeah,
and he's like the perfect guy to do it because he's zero self-awareness.
He's a schmuck. He's
a real dingus, as they would say.
Cobell agrees to rejoin Lumen on the condition that she is rehired as head of MDR to help Mark finish the Cold Harbor file. So what, in your mind, do you have any theories as to what the Cold Harbor file is?
I have no idea. I don't even know what it's like code for. Like I even like Googled it. I'm gonna Google it again.
So
Cold Harbor. See what comes up.
The only thing that it has to for sure involve.
It's a brewing company. Is some nice IPAs.
I've had Cold Harbor beers. They're good.
You have.
It's got to obviously involve Gemma / Miss Casey, right? Because Coball was really staring at that video when Mark was in there with Miss Casey. So it has something to do with that, obviously. To what? I'm not really sure.
What? We have no idea.
Helena instead suggests an impromptu meeting with the board, prompting Cobell to drive off. Mark and Devin attempt to burn an after image into his retina to communicate with his innie, hence the title of the episode, Who is Alive? They're timing shit out. I'll be honest, not the worst plan. It's also not a great plan. He thinks he's going to be able to like close his eyes, see this thing, and then like go in there and then like open his eyes up and like, you know how you can fucking do that shit and like you're like, whoa, like a magic eye.
Well, it was also like I had this. Remember he was in the beginning. He's like counting, and he counted. Like it was like he looked at his watch, and it was like 1 minute and 47 seconds, and then he counted like another set of seconds. And I'm like in my mind, I'm like, all right, what does that number mean? And it's like, oh, he's just trying to burn an image into his eyes.
So you also get one of the what was her role in season 1? She was somebody that would like a surgeon, right? Basically that like put the chip in the heads.
Yeah.
I'm talking about what surgeon, I guess is what you said about that. I forget how to say her name. But she interrupts Mark. She tells him his strategy won't work and that reintegration is the only way to send messages in and out of Lumen.
Yeah.
So Mark agrees to the procedure because the woman that approaches him confirms to him is like, yeah, your wife is alive. And then they end up doing this like procedure in Mark's basement, and he's flashing back and forth between the president and the orientation room and everything else on the 7th floor.
And in the middle, she goes, "Oh shit!" In the middle of it, which like that's not what you want to hear. You don't want to hear that in the middle of a procedure.
Well, this shit's wild. It's obviously dangerous. You know, PD in season 1 had his issues, but if Mark basically he chose to be severed to cope with the loss of his wife. So then as soon as he finds out that his wife is actually still alive, I think of course he's going to fucking try this.
That's right.
But it is pretty crazy. So like, depending on how this goes, I guess the first question, like, do you think this takes? Is he going to be able to walk amongst them as really or like a combination of the two? Like, what is the after effect of this going to be?
See, that's interesting because I don't know. The implication is that it's kind of like fractured. Like, so he kind of like goes back in time. So like one of his sense of time is off because like doesn't he wake up and it's like his interview?
Yeah, it's like when he kind of snapped out, like when he first got severed, I think. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So is it now we're gonna get into that where it's like, you know, your consciousness and like time travel and stuff?
I don't know.
Are we gonna get stuck in like a loop or like a paradox?
It's like all that shit's possible.
Yeah.
Or is there a scenario where he's inside there and he knows like everything? Meaning like he knows what his innie lived, but he also knows what his outie has lived. And then does he have to like fool people that are in there that he's like the same old innie Mark? It's gonna be pretty intense, I think.
That's what I mean. He's like a time traveler in a sense.
Yeah. Do you think this was an idea that Billy had last week? Do you think that any Helly is basically dead, and Helena is now just like, if she's in there, she's her pretending to be her. Because I'm not 100% sure on that one. Like, I think.
Say that again.
So basically, we came up with the idea that once Helena realized that like Helly broke out, said all that shit to everybody, then she had to clean that up.
Yeah.
And then she was watching the tapes of her and Mark and like the relationship that they had, and that she was always of the mindset that like the innies aren't even really human. And so now to gather intel, is she just pretending to be the innie version?
Oh,
Meaning
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's just Helena. There's no Helly. It's just, there's no
Yeah.
any Helly.
Yeah,
It's just Audi Helena.
Probably right.
Yeah.
Probably right. Billy D emailed us with some of his thoughts, and he is true. Right off the rip, he was like, and we didn't even mention this in the recap, but when Milchek is given those paintings,
Yeah.
and he's like, blackface is always a bold choice, and it's just like it's meant to be like this, I don't know,
profound gift to him. Yeah.
And then it's Natalie. There's like handing it to him, and she's like getting like this awkward smile, which I think it's because she always knows that everybody's watching, and she's always the one that brings in like the communication device with the board. It's very creepy, very weird. And she's like,
right,
yeah, like they gave me an equally like great gift just like this. And Milchek's like, oh my, is like all he says.
Oh my. And then he immediately puts it in like the storage room. Thanks. This is great. Thanks, everybody.
They also show, as Billy says, there's like a youthful version of Keir, and he's wearing like a head wrap, which some people think that maybe that was like the first severance procedure. You're like, maybe he'd got something done, and now he's like photographed with like a head wrap on. He says also there's a Mark S type of figure is seen at the bedside of the painting. Billy also says O&D might be the refined clones along with Irving. He says they know that hallway. Irving's current innie has never seen it, but past innie version may have, hence why he paints it. You think there's cloning in this?
There's got to be. Like, this is what we're dealing with here, right? And maybe that's like what Cold Harbor is they're trying to like clone these. Because we talked about it last week. We're dealing with like what they're doing is like trying to rebuild someone's consciousness.
Yeah.
Like that's what they're like, because they have no idea what they're doing. Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. There's like the long con of just developing as many of these types of people as possible. And then you basically have like a Stepford Wives type of situation, like a whole town of people that like you can kind of almost control. I don't know.
But yeah, but it's also like if you can truly clone a person, you don't need to sever them.
Right.
You don't need the one person. You can have two of the same person.
True.
And maybe Cold Harbor. So what they're doing is like mindlessly putting these numbers into boxes, and maybe that data, like they have tendencies in how they do things and how quickly they do things. So they're like mining their own data.
Yeah, well, because that is sort of still, there's a lot of theories around that. We don't really know what the hell they're doing.
Right.
And Billy says in season 1, Dylan says they only finish 1 out of every 5 files because they expire. So he's saying, did Irving expire? And does that even make sense since he lives outside the walls of Lumen as an Audi? Hard to say. Billy also says the best theory he's seen is that Rickon uses an Android phone on an Apple show. So he may be the Lumen Antichrist. And when Mark wakes from his thing at Devin's house, he calls her Persephone, who is, of course, the Lord of the Underworld.
Continue.
Lordess, I don't know. I'm just reading from Billy. Also, he's like, I don't think Rickon would ever compromise his words from what we've known of him in the past. So him selling his book to Lumen, he doesn't like that for his character. Yeah. I kind of agree, but I think he just he loves the attention, and he loves that people are even into the book.
Oh yeah, he's a dingus. He loves that people love his somewhere loves his book.
Yep.
Yeah, he's
Billy's shocked that we're getting the reintegration so soon. I agree. I mean, because that can go a variety of different ways, and there's still 7 episodes left this season.
Yeah.
He says people are saying that it might be Helly's innie because it's such a forceful showing of evidence that it's not. So he's like, I don't necessarily love that theory. Yeah, because I could go either way on that. My guess is the innie version doesn't really exist anymore. But then again, we'll see. Billy says 18 minutes for Dylan with his wife, 18 windows of pictures. In the Bible, the number 18 could represent bondage, oppression, and limitation. He goes, nothing wild here, just underscoring how detailed they are. He says, my theory of him being related to Miss Huang also out the window now. Yeah, I'd agree. That was a good theory for a couple weeks.
A couple weeks, and then that kind of petered out. Yeah.
Yeah. He says, also in Dylan's house, there is a Keir doll on the floor, and his kids are watching a Danger Mouse episode. And someone said in that particular episode, they shrink down to enter someone's brain, and it's because someone is in there in the person's brain interfering already. He goes, this show is pretty fucking detailed.
Yeah, that's pretty detailed.
I guess there's also a deep dive. Billy sent me another thing like on Instagram. Somebody did a deep dive into this Danger Mouse episode, which is like,
yeah. Where do people have the time? How do you do this?
I don't know.
It came out 3 days ago.
Yep. Yeah. And people are breaking down this episode of Danger Mouse where apparently they are going inside people's brains.
Like, come on.
Billy says the goat stuff, he says, is wild. No clue what any of it means. He's like, I think they make show their belly buttons because the season 1 instant with Bert. I agree with that. He goes, second, watch the goat people have the axes that OND made, and a lot of them have facial bruises or scars like you'd get from an airbag in a crash. So that's interesting. You think maybe, well, like Miss Casey, technically on the outside, didn't they think that she died in a car accident?
Yes.
So I wonder if they're taking some of these either I don't know if they're causing the car accidents or not, but maybe they're at least taking the bodies from.
That's what I said.
Yeah, so maybe some of those people though, and I know they told the one guy that is outie, but that could just be a straight lie.
Yeah.
So those people like Gwendolyn Christie's character might be like Miss Casey, where they're like, hey, we have these bodies. We don't even need to sever these people, but we can fuck with their brains and like bring them in here.
Yeah, it's like just their consciousness. It's not them.
Yeah.
Or like they have no sense of, but I wonder too, like if what that means, like what actually happens when you go in the elevator? Do you like I would shrink down?
So that good question. I don't know. There's I don't know what the technology is. But like the Audis do walk into what looks like a huge building.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's not like they walk into like a tiny building. It's like, how is this big?
Right.
I don't know if they're going down that small. I think it was Josh in the chat. He emailed us and he was like, one thing that bothers them, although it could be maybe an important clue or an oversight, he says, when the Audis are in the parking lot, it looks really cold, but you can't see their breath. And I was like, I feel like this show would be on that. So maybe there's something fucking up with like the whole place.
Yeah, that is true.
You know, I think they would be on that, but
what do we know? Fuck.
What the fuck do we know? Not much.
Seriously.
Not much. All right. Before we get out of here, Rye, what would be your top?
What the fuck? What the fuck?
Moments.
So for me, it was the guy who like you saw these goats and then you see the black goat and then you just see the guy, the big red-headed guy like raise up. That was probably it for me.
The guy wearing like the goat or like whatever that thing
or when
was.
They started like surrounding them.
Yeah, there's a ton of them in there.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a really good one.
That was kind of fucked up.
Yep. I think just any Dylan getting to meet his Audi wife. Like,
that was
crazy.
That shit was wild, man.
Shit was wild in the hood.
Wild in the hood.
Yeah, Brad saying, are the goat people severed or just resurrected dead people? That's what I think. There's a chance of that because these guys look pretty beat up. Like when we saw Miss Casey in season 1, they clearly like cleaned her up. She looked fine, but these people all looked like they had been in some sort of battle. Like so,
they had seen some shit.
They had been out there in the world. But yeah, this show continues to be. So I guess the biggest question I have is just going to be the fallout from Mark specifically.
right?
And where all that goes, and then
And like, what's going on with what's her name? Like,
Cobell?
Cobell. Like, I'm
Colvig?
interested in that too. Colvig.
Yeah, because she wants back in, and they clearly kind of are interested in her for some reason. Like, they're not just like completely letting her go. Like, Helena like calls her back, but then she's like, she was pretty shook up at the end of it and like bailed once again. So I'm like, well, I don't know what's. I don't.
She thought she was going to get got.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised she didn't get got. Like, she knows all this stuff.
She knows all this shit.
And then Milchick remains a great character because like you really don't know what his motivation is. You really don't know.
Zero idea what's going on with him.
Is he a good guy, bad guy, somewhere in between? Although I think they're making you feel like that bullshit that they're the bullshit paintings and stuff. They're making him way more sympathetic. So it's almost like you are kind of like hoping he's all right. I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Shit's crazy.
Shit's fucked. That show's so fucking crazy. All right, let us know what you guys think. dorkpodcast@gmail.com might be the easiest way, or you can hit us up on Twitter and Instagram @dorkpodcast. We'll be ripping Severance all the live long 2 more months, I guess, because it's gonna be
2 months of this.
2 months.
I don't know if my heart can take it.
2 months of us trying to figure this shit out. But that'll do it for us. If you're watching live on YouTube, jump over to the other link. We will be doing more movie preview for 2025, the releases for July through the end of the year. So hop on over there. And in the meantime, Ryan promised me 1,000,000 times over, you'll never do another rule.
Yeah, no, man, I'm not gonna promise you that.
The hashtag Dork Podcast.